Right, we're finally going to do it. So last week I did my first ever order from Perfumers World. If you haven't heard of them already, they are one of the biggest suppliers for DIY or at-home perfumers. So in this video I'm going to give you my review, tell you what I thought about the service, about Perfumers World, about the order that I got. And then also at the end of the video I'm going to talk a little bit about my new Discord channel, which is for discussing perfumery, and also my perfumery app Formula. So if you're interested in any of those things, stay tuned for the rest of the video. Okay, so this was the box that I received last week from Perfumers World. So I'm going to give you a quick little bit of context about the actual order and why I decided to make the order, and then I'll get into how the order was like and my review. So the reason that I wanted to make an order from Perfumers World is because they had a couple of raw materials in particular that I really wanted to get hold of, but the only other place I could find them were Hermitage Oils, which is based in Italy, and they now have a €200 minimum order quantity. I found that Perfumers World was selling both of these things, and if you're interested, what the things were Cypress Absolute and Tomato Leaf Natural. Now the reason that I wanted to get those so bad were, well, Cypress Essential Oil is one of my favorite essential oils. I really like the way it smells, and I was really interested to see what the Absolute would be like. Then for Tomato Natural, I don't actually have any good raw materials that smell like a tomato leaf, but it is one of my favorite smells of all time. So I wanted to see if this Tomato Leaf Natural would live up to the expectation of a tomato leaf. So I saw these things on Perfumers World, and I thought maybe this is a good time to make an order. What I also noticed was at the end of December, they had a special offer where they were doing free shipping right up until the new year. So I thought, why not go and make an order and do their minimum order quantity of $100 and see what it was like. Now, when I went onto the website, the cool thing that I found with Perfumers World is that instead of buying set sizes of bottles, so most places that sell raw materials, you'll buy 10ml bottles and you'll get 10ml of raw materials, and often the starting price for raw materials is something around £7 or £8 per bottle. So you can imagine from that, if you just wanted to buy, say, 10 raw materials, you'd be looking at £70 to £80 minimum spend. Now, the really cool thing about Perfumers World is that you actually choose exactly how many grams of each raw material you want. So if you want, you can only buy a single gram of raw material just to try it. The way this works is you have a price per gram of the raw material, and then you have a bottling fee on top of that. So what I realized I could do here was that this would be an excellent opportunity to go and try a load of different raw materials just by buying 1 or 2 grams of them. And then obviously that meant I would have enough to go and evaluate them and actually start using them. And then obviously in the future, if I always wanted more, then I could go back to them or someone else and go and buy more of those raw materials. So by doing this method, I managed to order 43 different raw materials in one order, which cost about $100, which honestly I thought was about incredible, because if you average that out, that's something like less than $2.50 per raw material. So that's really, really cheap. I would say cheaper than anywhere else you can actually go and buy raw materials. Anyway, because of this ability to only go and buy 1 gram of certain things, I took it as an opportunity to go and buy, firstly, a load of expensive raw materials that I wouldn't normally have been able to buy because they were too expensive, and just get 1 gram of them, sometimes diluted already down to 10%, just to be able to know what they would smell like. And then secondly, there are a lot of other random raw materials that I never really thought that I would particularly need or have a use for, but they kind of sounded interesting. So I took this as a good excuse just to go and get some of those to go and try them. Now, you may be thinking, hey, well, isn't this a bit of a problem if you're only ordering 1 gram of each raw material? Surely you're not going to have enough to actually go and use it. Well, for me, this isn't really a problem, and the reason is because I go and pre-dilute all of my raw materials, firstly to 10% and then usually to 1% as well. That means for each 1 gram of raw material I buy, it's going to make a whole 10 milliliter bottle of the pre-dilution that I go and make. Because I'm usually using 0.5 grams or less of that 10% pre-dilution per trial blend that I make when I'm trialing out new formulas, that already means that per 1 gram of initial raw material, I'm already getting 20 plus trial blends for me to go and experiment with it and try it out to see if it's going to work in one of my perfumes. So for me, having just 1 milliliter of a raw material is usually more than enough. Now, I get that not everyone has the same accuracy of scales, and even if not, that's still okay, because say you went and got 3 grams or something of each raw material you're interested in instead, you're still then, by making a 10% dilution, getting 30 grams of your pre-diluted raw material, which should be enough, even with, say, scales that are only accurate to 2 decimal places, to last you for quite a few trial blends. So all in all, this is one of the things I really liked about Perfumer's World, this ability to go and order just a small amount of each raw material, thereby for the same amount of money, allowing you to try way more raw materials than you would have before. And I do think this is really useful, especially because in perfumery, a lot of the time, you just don't know what things are going to be like until you actually smell them for yourself. There's often times I find I'll read a description of something and I think, oh, this is going to be amazing, and then I get it and it falls short of expectations. So by being able to just try a load of different things like this, you also essentially reduce the risk of that happening, and you also increase the risk of kind of surprises where you didn't think something was going to be that great, but actually it ended up being really, really nice. Okay, so now let's talk about the other positives and negatives about the order. So another positive about the order was the fact that all of the bottles were really well packaged. Everything was wrapped with a lot of bubble wrap. So even though that this box came all the way from Thailand in the post, nothing smashed, nothing broke, everything was here in perfect condition. So that's a good point. Another thing that I thought was good is actually all of the bottles, I didn't know this before I ordered, but they gave you a dropper cap for each bottle. So usually the bottles have pretty regular bottles and caps. They have a slight liner. I'm not sure what liner it is, but there is a liner on top of the cap. However, for the same size of the bottle that you get, you also have a dropper, so a cap, and then you get these little glass pipette sticks, which I assume you stick into the cap, and then you can screw that in, so you can actually kind of keep a dropper pipette inside your bottle. The fact that they gave that with the order for free, I think is really, really good. Now, personally, I don't really use these, and the reason for that is because the rubber seal on dropper caps can degrade over time, especially from the ethanol if you're pre-diluting your raw materials, but also from the aroma chemicals themselves. So I find they're not really meant for long-term storage. You wouldn't want to have a raw material in a dropper capped bottle for something like a year or two. That said, it is useful if you were intensively using a raw material for, say, a month or so. Say you were working on a perfume and you're doing like 50 iterations of that perfume from start to finish, and you were doing all of that in a space with a couple of months. Then having the raw materials used for that perfume in a dropper cap just for that time period, in order to be able to keep weighing out the same amounts for your trials without having to keep wasting reusable pipettes, that's a really good thing. So if you are using dropper caps in general, that's the advice I would give. Just use them for when you know you're going to be frequently using a raw material, and just bear in mind that if you leave them for too long, they're going to start to break down, and that not only means that the raw materials are going to escape out of the bottle, but it also means that the rubber is going to break down and it's going to fall into the raw materials. So it's going to be contaminating both ways. So anyway, I did think this was a really good thing about the order, the fact they gave you those for free. And I know that for a lot of people who maybe they don't have a load of pipettes, a lot of people just use these all the time. And I think that's something that's really, really useful, knowing you don't have to go and already buy a load of extra bottles. You can just use what they give you. Now for the bad things. So I really didn't find that much wrong with my order. There were really only 2 points that I could come up with. So firstly, you can't get the MSDS, or the Material Safety Data Sheet, from the website as far as I could tell. Maybe it was hidden away somewhere. If you know about this, then please do let me know in the comments. But from what I could tell, they didn't provide this. And this data sheet is really important when you're getting a CPSR, or a Cosmetic Product Safety Report, in the EU or the UK, which is what you need to go and legally sell your perfumes. So the fact that you can't get the MSDS of Perfumer's World, that's annoying for me, because it meant that if I wanted to go and take one of their raw materials and then actually use it in a perfume, if I couldn't get the MSDS from them, and as I say, maybe you can, I'm not sure if you can, it's just I couldn't see a way to get it. If you can't get that data sheet, then it means I probably wouldn't be able to use that raw material in my formula without actually just going and buying it from another supplier instead, who did offer me that data sheet. Now, the other thing that was bad is they don't have any bulk pricing. So there's no real incentive to go and buy, say, 10 grams or 20 grams or 100 grams of raw material instead of just a single gram until you need that to make up a specific perfume. So from my experience, most suppliers have pricing brackets. So if you buy 100 grams, it's a lot cheaper per gram than if you buy just 10 grams. And again, if you go and buy a kilogram, then it's even cheaper. So it kind of rewards you for buying more. Now, because Perfumers World doesn't have that, again, it leads me to believe that, okay, Perfumers World is really good for going and trying raw materials, but if you wanted to make a bulk production batch for your perfume, say you wanted to go and make like 10 perfumes or 100 perfumes, you're probably better off finding the same raw material from a different supplier because you're probably going to be able to get a better deal on it. That said, neither of these 2 points really matter until you're getting to the point where you've got your formula and you want to go and productionize it and sell it. If you're just making perfumes for yourself, for you or friends at home, and you're only making a couple of full-size perfumes every now and again and you're not batch producing anything, then basically there's only really good points that I can think of about Perfumers World, which is great because that means I can highly recommend them as a supplier. Other points about Perfumers World, I have heard a lot online about some people kind of saying that their fluorescences that they sell are bad and you shouldn't use them. From what I can gather, their fluorescences are their pre-made bases. Now, a lot of DIY perfume raw materials online stores, so the shops that sell raw materials, that's places like Pale Wall, Perfumer's Apprentice, and Perfumers World, they sell their own bases. So this would be, for example, they might sell an apple base, or in Perfumers World's case, an apple fluorescence, which is designed to give you the smell of apples because there's no natural raw material that gives you that smell. So you would have to make your accord, and I guess if you didn't want to go and make that accord yourself, you just wanted it pre-made because say you had your perfume, you just wanted to slot it in, you could go and buy a base without having to make it yourself. The reason that a lot of people online don't like these bases are because often these companies are selling the raw materials. There's no guarantee that they're going to continue these bases very far into the future. And this could be a massive problem. Say if you went and you made a perfume, you used a base by Perfumers World, but it could be somewhere else like Pale Wall, and then they discontinued the base. Now you're stuck with a formula which you don't know how to reproduce because that base is not for sale anymore and you don't know what was in it. So you can't recreate that same perfume anymore. I think the other reason that people don't like these bases and fluorescences is because, well, it kind of circumvents you actually having to do perfumery, and it's kind of hard to say that you've properly trained in perfumery in a sense, or say that you've kind of got the good fundamentals of perfumery if you're only building with pre-made accords that other people have made. The reason for this is because you don't actually know what the raw materials that would make up those accords are and how they work together. So in a sense, you kind of avoided doing a lot of the perfumery work themselves. Again, because these bases are so niche, it's hard to get advice from other people. So say you'd gone and made a formula and you'd gone and made it with a load of these fluorescence bases or other bases. Unless I happen to have all of those bases, which I wouldn't have because I'm not particularly interested in them in general, then I wouldn't have a clue what your formula was going to smell like or how to improve it. But if you're using things in your formula that everyone kind of has, things like ambroxan, things like ethylene brassylate, things like dihydromercenol, even by looking at a formula, you can kind of quickly look and start to tell at least roughly what that perfume might smell like, if something may be too strong or too weak. So that was just a little side note. And the reason I mention that is because if you are going to go buy from Perfumers World, I would be a little bit cautious about buying what are called fluorescences, especially if you don't know about this before. Say you're a beginner and you haven't learned any better on why not to buy these things. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy them. I'm just saying you should kind of really consider the cons to buying them, because I wouldn't want you to go and get them and then realize that you run into some of these problems. And it's not just Perfumers World that I'm saying you shouldn't buy their bases. This is really any perfumery supplier that sell pre-made bases. I'm not going to say you shouldn't buy them, but I just think you should buy them as infrequently as possible and treat them with some level of skepticism. Anyway, that's that rant over. So overall, let me give my conclusion on Perfumers World. I thought, in general, I thought it was really, really good. And I think that it is ideal for doing this strategy where you go and buy a load of different raw materials in small amounts just to try them. I think it's absolutely fantastic for that. I don't think any other online perfumery raw materials supplier can compete with that. And I think this is a really, really good reason to go and make an order from Perfumers World. That said, they're probably not the best supplier for if you're actually going and productionizing your perfumes. If you want to go and buy a load of stuff to actually make up big batches, then you probably are best off looking to a different supplier. Anyway, now we're here and I've got all these bottles. I might as well take the opportunity to just go through a couple of my favorite things and let you guys know what they smell like. So to begin with, I've got this Cypress Absolute, which is one of the things that I was making this whole order for essentially in the first place. Now, the Cypress Absolute, it's really this, I would say, like a forest floor kind of aroma. It's very interesting because when you have essential oils of the conifer woods, so things like cypress, things like pine, they're very terpenic. They've got this, it's quite a woody, sharp top note that's very fresh and jumps out at you, and then after that they're gone. But the absolutes of the conifer woods, on the other hand, seem to be almost the opposite. They seem to be like the forest floor kind of scent. They seem to give you that kind of mulchy, kind of twigs on the ground, very deep, quite woody, almost a little bit musty, slightly sweet kind of scent. And I think that these materials are really, really interesting. So this Cypress Absolute actually reminds me a lot of the Pine Needle Absolute that I have. So I have no idea what I can do with this yet in a perfume, but I do really like it and I would love to find something good to do with it. The one thing I'll note about this is if you're thinking about buying it, it's an extremely thick, green, sticky kind of gum, I would say. It's not actually pourable, so if you put that bottle upside down, it won't start moving down, or at least not for a long, long, long time. And when you open this, it's almost like glue, so you kind of have to dig at it with something like a spatula or a pipette just to transfer it in. So I would recommend pre-diluting this. That's what I did, but it went and took me something like 20 minutes just to go and make that pre-dilution because it was such a mess working with the material. The other thing that I was making this whole order for really was the Tomato Leaf Natural. Now this, when I go and smell it, the first thing that leaps out at me straight away is this cistery-hexanol smell, that kind of grassy green fresh smell. But beyond that, you can actually find with your nose what is reminiscent of kind of a tomato leaf. It's got that signature herbaceous scent, and this has definitely got that kind of scent to it. So I think this is quite an interesting raw material. Another thing that I've got here is Blackcurrant Absolute. So Blackcurrant Absolute is quite expensive, and as such I've never had a chance to get it before. But this stuff, I think is I really like it. A lot of people say it smells like cat piss, and now I smell it, I can understand where that's coming from. But because of people saying it smelled like cat piss, I wasn't actually prepared for how much of a blackcurrant-like scent it actually did have. And I was pre-diluting this along with some other things, and I had some pipettes with esters in, so they're often quite fruity molecules. And I did notice this general smell when I came back into my room afterwards, that it really smelled quite strongly like a blackcurrant. So definitely this could be used for a blackcurrant accord. I've also seen that it can be used in a mango accord. If you go and read Jean-Claude Elena's book, Perfume, The Alchemy of Scent, he says that you can use Blackcurrant Absolute for a mango accord in combination with beta-ionone and aldehyde C14. So again, this is something that I will try with it. And then the other thing about it is it's got these kind of sulfurous notes, which might sound disgusting, but actually it's sulfurous notes which go and make tropical fruits in general different, I would say, from regular fruits. So if you're looking to make anything kind of tropical, like a guava, that kind of smell, Blackcurrant Absolute could definitely be something that goes in those fruit accords. Now, while those three materials were the ones that I was most excited about, I also did end up getting quite a lot of other things, and I'm going to give a special mention to probably my favorite thing, which was a complete surprise, which is guaiacol. So I'd never smelled this before. I'd read it on descriptions online that it's smoky and has some kind of vanilla, some kind of raspberry tea-like undertones. And because I've smelled rectified cade oil, which is really, really smoky, almost disgustingly smoky, kind of like a bonfire smell, I assumed that guaiacol would smell something a bit like that, and that these kind of raspberry vanilla notes in the description were just something kind of written there to make you more likely to buy it. But I was completely wrong. When I went and opened this and I smelled it, it just smells amazing. I would say it smells more vanilla actually than smoky, and I can definitely see these raspberry, tea and smoky undertones to it. It's quite hard to describe, but it does smell like something that I really think would work well in kind of like an incense perfume, something like an oud and a gourmand, kind of a gourmand incense. So something that's kind of like vanilla, maybe some storax, maybe some oud, maybe some woods, that kind of thing, some amber. I really think this would go well in a perfume like that. So that is something I'll try at some point. And then, yeah, I've got all of these other things here. It's going to take me probably quite a few weeks to slowly go through and end up diluting these, and then after that I'll start making the proper evaluations that I do, so on the scent strips and recording them into formula. Only at that point will I really start to get a better understanding of how these materials work, how long they last, which ones are top, mid and base notes, and get ideas for how I might be able to start using them. So that is something that's going to keep me busy for quite a while. And yeah, overall I was really, really happy with the order. Right, so that's Perfumers World. Now, before I go, I quickly want to invite all of you guys to my new Discord community for discussing perfumery related things. So I did have a few comments a while back in the last few months or so about creating essentially a Discord community for perfumery. So Discord, if you don't already know, is essentially a platform. You can get it on your computer, on your phone, and it's kind of like a place where you've got different text channels about different topics. So a lot of people use this for doing things like online gaming, but nowadays there are a lot of Discord communities popping up for other things as well. And one thing that I was asked about was having a Discord community for perfumery. Now, in my opinion, this Discord community idea makes a lot of sense. And the main reason for that is sometimes I get asked in the comments quite intricate or in-depth questions for people who've got a certain problem in perfumery, and they need help or they want to find an answer to it. But obviously it's kind of difficult because when you're in the comments of YouTube, obviously it's great for some things, but also to have a more in-depth discussion or a bit more of a back and forth about a certain thing, it's not really built for that. And the other thing is there's only one of me, so for everyone who's commenting on my channel, of course, I try to help as much as possible, but often there'll be other people who may know the answer, who can get there before I manage to get around to replying. And there may be other people as well with a lot of knowledge about the certain topic, which I don't actually have myself. So creating a kind of community on Discord where everyone can go and chat about all these perfumery topics. That means if you have something you found and you want to share it with everyone because you found it interesting, you can do that. Also, if you've got a question and you want help, you're not just kind of posting a comment, say on one of my videos, but you've actually got a chance to go and engage with a lot of people and kind of put your question out there. And hopefully the idea with this is that everyone can kind of help each other, because at the end of the day, we're all beginners, myself included. I have a lot of questions from time to time, and I'm not an expert on anything. I'm learning perfumery myself, just like you guys. I've probably been doing this, I would say, fairly intensively for about 2 years now. I was doing it a little bit before, but compared to a master perfumer, I really have a tiny amount of knowledge. And I think, or I'm pretty sure, there must be people watching my videos who have far more knowledge than me. So I thought making the Discord community would be a great idea, in order to kind of just allow a bit more of a actual proper community and a bit of a better discussion about perfumery related things, essentially providing a safe space where you can chat about this kind of stuff in much more of a friendly way than just in the YouTube comments. Now, of course, there are a lot of other perfumery communities already, places like Base Notes online or DIY Fragrance on Reddit. I'm not trying to replace the other communities in no shape or form. And I think that these other communities are great. They already have a lot of people, and I would highly recommend them. The reason that I'm creating another community is simply because some people asked for it, and I think it's a nice way, especially for me, to engage a bit more in an in-depth way with people who are watching the videos and subscribing to the videos. And if it's something that grows into something a bit bigger, or if it just kind of remains quite a small thing that's quite closely tied with the YouTube channel, I don't really mind too much. I just thought I would go out there and create it and see what happens. So if you want to go and join that, then check the link in the description below and feel free just to join and see if it's something that works out. There is one other main big reason, which is why I wanted to create a Discord community specifically, and that is for formula. So I had a post on Base Notes a while back about formula, which was great for allowing me to kind of communicate with people in terms of both receiving feedback on the app and also helping people out with problems that they were having with it. Or if they were interested and wanted to know something, then it kind of allowed me to answer that and realize that I needed to communicate that better. Now, that post got taken down or it got locked, and the reason for that was because it was technically a paid service, and the people who run Base Notes felt like it was too much of an advertising thing, and they felt like it was not really good for the community, which I think is entirely fair enough. But the problem for me now is, since that, I don't really have a place to openly discuss formula with everyone who uses it. And I really think it's important, especially to get feedback on how people are using the app, or if people have questions about how to do something in the app, or they have suggestions for little bug fixes or this or that. All of these things, I really think it's important to have somewhere where people can go and discuss all that stuff. So what I've gone and now done is, in this Discord community, I've made a section for Perfumery, and there's also a section for formula. So there are now channels for everything, like updates, for example. So when I release a new app update, you can be the first to hear about it. Any new features or bug fixes which were added, by being in the Discord, you can get updated straight away as soon as something like that happens. So I'm really aiming this especially at people who are paying for the full version of formula and want to get kind of the most value out of that purchase. If you're in that Discord, then any updates to do with the app, you'll be the first to hear about them. It's also a great way to kind of chat with me and discuss openly about kind of feedback and get other people's ideas on certain things in the app. So if you are interested in formula, it doesn't matter if you're paying or not paying. I really don't mind if you're using it free. That's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy for you to go and do that. That's why I made it free to download and try in the first place. If you are interested at all in formula, you like using it, just go and join the Discord, and then you can be updated, as I say, about new updates and any kind of comments or feedback you have about it. I'll read everything in that Discord. So that is really the second reason that I wanted to make it, was basically to have somewhere to have some kind of community about formula. And yeah, that's it. So that's the end of this video. I know I haven't been making videos that much recently. Very soon I hope to get back to kind of normal scheduling for videos for 2022. And hopefully this next year we can have a load of cool videos about different accords, different raw materials, whatever you guys are interested in. So until then, I will see you soon and have a great week.